Morning. It is 10 o'clock on August 2nd, 2022. We'll call to order the meeting of the Story County Board of Supervisors. Please stand with me if you're able and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You. I would like to make one change to the agenda this morning and move up our proclamation to the first to number 7. Just switch it out. If that's all right with everybody. Pardon? Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the said changes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Heads. Aye. Perkins.
Aye.
Basil. Aye. Now it's time for public comment number 1. Anyone who would like to make public comment on topics that are on today's agenda, you can step forward to the table or raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing no one, will close public comment number 1. We have no agency reports, so we'll move to our proclamation for Purple Heart Day. Supervisor Headings, would you like to start?
Sure. Purple Heart Day, August 7th, 2022. Whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in present use and was initially created as the badge of military merit by General George Washington in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart was the first American service war or decoration made available to the common soldier and is specifically awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces who have been wounded or paid the ultimate sacrifice in combat with a declared enemy in the United States of America. And
Whereas the mission of the military order of the Purple Heart is to foster an environment of goodwill among combat wounded veteran members and their families, promote patriotism, support legislative initiatives, and most importantly, ensure we never forget. And whereas Story County has a large, highly decorated veteran population, including many Purple Heart recipients. And whereas Story County appreciates the sacrifices our Purple Heart recipients made in defending our freedoms and believe it's important to acknowledge them for their courage and show them the honor and support they have earned.
Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Story County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim August 7, 2022 as Purple Heart Day in Story County and encourage citizens of the county to show their appreciation for the sacrifices of all Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, to acknowledge their courage and to show them the honor and support they have so selflessly earned. I would move approval of the proclamation.
Second.
I don't know what I just did.
It's all right.
All right. Merkin.
Aye.
Heads. Aye. Basil. Aye. Thank you. And we do have some guests here this morning. Is Brett here? Hi, Brett. Would you like to come up and say anything?
Yeah, we have a few recipients of the Purple Heart Medal with us today. And I'd like to just ask them to stand right now and be recognized. Just, a few that representing the whole county here,
Right.
that received Purple Hearts. So if we could
Get a
get
picture.
a picture.
That would be wonderful.
With a Purple Heart flag.
Oh, great. Oh, great.
Yeah. We can do a couple
Where would you
pictures.
like to do it?
We'll do it right down here. or-
Up here?
Maybe I don't know if I'll be able to get you one right here. So if you guys want to come up back here, we'll get a quick picture. Who wants to hold?
Oh.
There we go. We're good now? Okay. Oh, you didn't hear
I don't know.
it. There
Can
we
you get us
go.
all?
All right, yep,
That look good?
yep. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Sure. Oh, I stole it.
No, I came over to sign, so.
Don't leave me alone with a pen. Okay. So moving on to item 7, Summit Carbon Solutions update. Good morning. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name again for the record, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm Kylie Kretz, Summit Carbon Project Manager.
I'm Paul Phillips. I'm with Turnkey Logistics. I'm here representing Summit as well. Got a couple of handouts I'd like to give to you guys if you don't mind. How many do we need? 3 or
Are those the ones that you had on the agenda that you sent?
probably? Yeah.
So they already have them.
Oh, you got them?
Yeah.
Good.
If you want to put the extras over there by Bryce, you can.
Okay. Yeah, set those over there when we're done. Okay, so I appreciate y'all's time, letting us come up here and just give you a quick update on the project. For those who are here who might not, know about the project, I'll give you a quick overview of what it is. We are sequestering carbon emissions from different ethanol facilities over 5-state area. We are going to pipe those up to North Dakota, where we're going to permanently sequester the carbon that's captured from these facilities. This is a project to directly help out the farming community over this 5-state area. This is developed by an Iowa company to benefit farmers directly. And how we're going to do this is to help these ethanol plants lower their carbon score, which is going to help them compete on a global market far more aggressively than they would be able to without that. In fact, it might cause them to not be able to produce their ethanol at all in a few years if something like this isn't put in place. So that's what we're doing. Just wanted to give you a quick update. We're planning construction summer of 23. We are at about 40% acquisition statewide, and about 1,400 landowners project wide have signed on. So we are doing pretty well with acquisition. We're collecting information and requirements for permits on a local level that will be, taken care of before the pipeline is put in. We have relationship managers that are working with your county departments to make sure all these are in place. We have already filed for our IUB permit, hoping for a decision around June of 2023. We have partnerships with several ethanol plants, like I mentioned, 32 different ethanol plants. Mincona Power Cooperative is also a partner, as well as the Blue Ammonia Project. We have several investors such as John Deere, Continental Resources, Summit Agriculture Group, Tiger Infrastructure, and TPG Rise Climate. We are also actively looking for community investment opportunities. If there's, anything that we could help support, we really like to get involved in the communities. We're here to be part of the community. We're here to be neighbors, not bullies to the community. We want to be here to, as a neighbor to everyone. So if there's anything like that, you guys feel free to reach out to us. Let us know if there's anything you think that we could help out with. We in the recent past helped out with a cleanup on Ioway Creek in Ames. So that's kind of an example of the type of thing that we're looking to do. That's about it for a update. We'd like to come back about every quarter and kind of let you know where we're at and answer any questions you guys might have. So open the floor to any questions.
I do have a few questions.
Okay.
Can you give me a very brief explanation of how the carbon tax credit works and who gets the credits?
Let me take that.
Sure.
Yeah, I can do that. The tax credit is based on the tonnage that we're able to permanently sequester underground in North Dakota. So anything that goes underground hits the tax credit. The tax credit will go to Summit, and through a pretty technical process, will be sold on the market, which is how we'll profit off the project versus the ethanol plants who are able to sell into the low carbon fuel markets, which is where they
100% of the carbon tax credit will go to Summit.
Yes,
Okay, how many tons do you expect to go through this pipeline annually?
9 million tons a year.
9 million.
Up to 12 is our capacity. Right now we have 9 million signed on.
Okay, and is the carbon tax credit currently $50?
45.
45. I thought it was going to go to 50 in a couple of years.
I'm not exactly sure. I know it's actually in the Senate right now on the movement of it.
Okay, I can check on that. So do you know what it's going to cost Summit to construct the pipeline, and is that all Summit's bill, or do they have other partners?
Yeah, it's going to cost about $4.5 billion. Yes, $4.5 billion. And we have private investors that have invested, and we obviously have to eventually pay them back. And then once we get through the permitting process, we'll apply for a construction loan from a bank, and that's how we'll fund it. It will be all privately funded.
Has the route changed at all?
About 2,000 times.
But so when are you expecting to have a final route?
We think in Iowa, it's pretty locked down at this point. The minor changes taking place are on single landowners who ask for small changes. There are not major route changes in the state of Iowa taking place anymore.
When will you allow the counties to have the landowner lists? Because we want to talk with them about the county inspector, make sure they know the county's responsibilities and all of that, and we can't really do that until we have a final landowner list.
So the landowner list, I guess we submit the easements to the county as we sign them. And ever as each, because they're technically not our landowners until we get them to sign an easement. But that's then published with the county as we sign them. But we are at this point giving county level KMZs out, which would show you the route rather than, and it's obviously the route that day. So, it's immediately outdated the day we send it to you, and we want to make that clear.
Who are you sending the easements to? Who are you sending the easements to?
At the county.
Yes.
I think they get filed with the auditor, maybe.
I'll check it again. I guess my last question is what plans you have for first responder training?
Yeah, so we have an individual named Rod Dillon. It's his full-time job to go county to county and train the first responders, or at least speak to them and determine what level of training they need. Regulated by PHMSA, we have to have our own first response team. So the first response training is virtually, hey, keep people out of the area. We'll have a 24-hour local team that's trained and ready to come in. But we have a full-time person dedicated going county to county.
And his contact information is right here at the bottom of his handout also.
And that team you're talking about, they'll be here forever.
The life of the pipeline. Yeah. They won't be here up until we commission, and then we'll have them steady. they'll actually be on board for, all the pipelines in the area, use the same contractor.
Where will the contractor be located based, Jimmy? But it's not gonna be at the county office.
No, but there's a regulated range on how fast they have to respond. I don't know off the top of my head.
And during the training, that's something really good to.
Yeah, I'm sure Rod Dillon knows all of those things.
I'm sorry.
Fine. Looking at your document, you said you have about 657 landowners that have signed so far. I'm assuming those are for here in Iowa. How many more are you still needing to work with?
That's about 40%.
No, it's statewide.
Statewide, 40%. Yeah, 600. No.
Yeah, that was my next question. It's a story kind of, which you don't have yet.
Well, and if the county's being notified as you're getting the easements, that's kind of after the fact. So is there a way for us to get a list of the landowners that you are currently trying to get those easements?
We have
Yes,
not been sending out a list for a variety of reasons. One, there are a lot of organizations working against us, and for privacy to the landowner, we don't want them on some type, 10 different mailing lists because we publicize their name when, our route's changing and they have not fully agreed to be on the project. So we have been trying to keep that, the landowner list less public, but we do want to work with the counties, which is why we're giving out the KMZ.
What is the KMC?
Sorry, it's a shape file digital format of the line where you can drop it onto like a Google Earth and see where the line lays.
Okay.
It's the standard file format that just goes right into Google Earth. That's,
Okay.
yeah.
So you shared that with the county?
We can.
already?
I've not
Okay, that would
seen
be
it.
great.
We
If
can
you
send
could, that would
Would
be
you send
great.
that as we get to our staff and we're working on it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We just do the caveat that it is changing, but not drastically.
Sure.
So
So, but our concern is making sure that all of the landowners are informed about where we're at in the process with getting an inspector, what the county's doing, what the pipeline's doing. We want to make sure that people have that information before they're making any decisions. I think that's the best way to help people make good decisions.
Yeah.
Make sure they're
More address.
I do. I can
Why
send
don't
it
you
over
send
to
it
you.
to me because I've got a distribution list. I can get it out to them.
Okay. Do you have a preference over, you probably don't, a KMZ or a shapefile, but I'll send you both.
What else?
Decommissioning. What would you do? What is your policy? What is your guarantee on decommissioning if someday this pipeline isn't used as no longer necessary?
So we will have a bond with the IUB for the cost of removing the pipe across the state of Iowa. Most landowners won't want it removed. And in that case, if we can get valve to valve not removed, we'll put, 10 pounds of pressure on it to prevent corrosion and allow it to sit there totally cleaned out and empty. But we do have the bond for any landowner that wants it taken out.
If they do want it taken out, do you then do mitigation on the right land?
We'll
separate soils. Do you
Yep,
do
we'll
all the
return it.
things
We'll take it
you
out the
do?
same way we put it in.
You return the land and it'll still take a few years. Would you guarantee on that land that whatever people were losing because of crop loss?
I
Because
can't,
you're doing that up front with the easement, are you
Yeah.
doing that with decommissioning?
I can't speak to everything that goes into the IUB bond, but I imagine that's built into the cost.
I can see landowners not wanting the pipeline still in their property, but I'm having to weigh that and.
Yep.
You pay for it up front to take care of it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
historically on pipelines, almost 100% of the landowners want to leave it in the ground just because of that reason. Exactly. And, we certify a clean and gas free. So it's just an empty pipeline.
You mentioned training, safety training. Is that something ongoing? Is it just a one-time deal?
I believe he works, and I apologize, I don't know that the elected official's name in the safety department or title in the safety department. But he'll work directly with them on what they want to do.
You know, in rural areas, most of our first responders are volunteers, and that force turns over quite a bit. So I can't imagine not wanting to come and train.
I mean, with it being Story County, it's not too hard for us to get out here and train. It's about 10 minutes from our headquarters. So,
I think you're probably working with emergency management.
yeah, that's a term I can't remember. That is who he's directly working with.
Just a second. No?
I've not had a call from anybody, so.
Okay, Melissa
Yeah.
Spencer's our administrator, and she's not heard from you guys yet.
At this point, we've done Nebraska and South Dakota. So he's working his way through counties. It'll be long before we're even in construction that we hit every county. We've completed Nebraska and South Dakota,
But you're looking at a June 2023 getting your permit. When does construction start?
August 2023.
There special safety equipment that fire departments are going to need.
No, because we'll bring in our own response team. So their equipment is just keeping people out of the area.
Is that negotiable?
Absolutely. I guess not us having our own team, but
No, I'm
equipment.
good
I'm
with
assuming you
having
meant
your own team,
equipment.
But my concern is, in response time, local people know, local area, I understand
Yeah.
you're based in Story County, but, making sure that our local first responders have everything that they need and are prepared to respond and not waiting for somebody else to come and respond.
Absolutely.
So,
And we do have, automated safety measures put in where as soon as there's a loss in temperature or loss in pressure, our systems will close themselves down. It's not human based in any way. So there's a lot of monitors put in place in that.
I think there's probably lots more questions.
Mhm.
So.
That's why we come.
Do you have a card with you? Have you our contact?
Yes.
Contact. Why don't you give me an extra one so I can. Those are the ones on kind of the top of my list, so. It's useful. Thank you.
If you have my contact, any questions in between our quarterly updates, feel free to call. I'm always happy to drive 10 minutes to Story County. So
thank you, we appreciate you having us keep us updated.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we will have discussion of proposal to establish Story County Transportation Action Group, members of League of Women Voters. We have Linda Hagedorn and Chris.
Thank you very much for allowing us to address the Board of Supervisors. I'm Linda Sarah Hagedorn, past president of the League and member of the board.
And I'm Chris Mondak, member of the League here in the county.
And we both co-chaired the League of Women Voters Transportation Committee. We'd like to address a little bit of background about what the League does. We are a nonpartisan political organization that we encourage informed participation in government and help voters understand major public policy issues. And we also influence public policy through study and advocacy, and that is the capacity in which we are addressing you today. The League takes on studies and issues when we have a position addressing it, and transportation comes under that heading. We undertake thorough pursuit of facts and details, positive and negative, and come to consensus about policy. The goals of our transportation study was to inform and explain transportation types and options in the United States, the state of Iowa, and then in Story County. We reviewed previous transportation studies, specifically those pertaining to Story County. investigate and collect best practices and studies of other rural regions, evaluate transportation options within Story County, and provide recommendations for improvements or additional services for Story County residents. We identified the different types of transportation. Demand response, where residents schedule rides as needed, like HRDA. Fixed route services, including buses, shuttles, circulators, and trains. That is like our Ssi ride. Van pools, personal pay or ride hailing, that's like Uber and taxis. Transportation rentals, and transportation delivered by volunteers or volunteer groups like RSVP.
My job here is to tell you our method of how we jumped into this project, which was roughly about a year ago. No one on the committee knew anything about transportation, so we had to start to talk to people in the know. And basically, we had two strategies of our methods. One is learning locally what's going on, and then secondly, looking at what reports and studies and best practices exist regionally and nationally. So getting started with people in the know, we reached out to our county supervisors. Latifa and Lisa, thank you for your time in getting us started. These two women gave us other contacts, such as what was going on with at the United Way with the transportation collaboration. They bring together representatives from many social service agencies whose clients really need transportation. So they have that broad view of those social needs. Those conversations always led to another person who else we should talk to. HRDA was part of those, so we got informed talking to HRDA what they were doing. HRDA is our regional transportation organization. They serve 7 counties. Story County is only one of them. And at the time, last summer, they had a project going on where they brought all members from their 7 counties together. We were invited simply to listen, and that was really good. We were on these Zoom sessions and got to hear firsthand what other places are dealing with, and also heard his interest of trying to serve those needs. We also learned about RSVP, which is a retired senior volunteer program. Drivers lined up to volunteer and help people get to their essential services, their doctor's appointments, their groceries. So that is in place. And we really would have been remiss if we didn't talk to the people in the small towns. This was actually a study of what's going on in rural Story County, not just Ames. Lots of resources in Ames. We wanted to know what's in Maxwell, Colo, Collins. So a series of phone calls there. Being the pandemic, it was all distant contacts. But we spoke with many mayors and city managers to get their view on what's happening or not happening with transportation. We were advised to speak to the directors of the food pantries because they are in touch with people who may or may not have transportation. What are their needs? And also our previous contact said, talk to the city clerks. They really understand their towns. So recently here in the spring, via just in-person, informal conversations, spoke to many of the city clerks to get their view on what they see is happening for transportation, what's not happening, what they know of their needs. Very interesting conversations because they could detail the problems and they all are eager to provide ideas and solutions. So in the future, as we hope this project goes forward in some way, we know that there's a big group of citizenry who would be eager to jump in with trying to improve things and bring their ideas. So the second direction of strategy of method was more formal. Linda is very good at researching. She compiled various reports. She found a treasure trove of reports about best practices of what's going on in other parts of this country in terms of rural transportation. So it wasn't our job to go through each one, but we offered to this group and others going forward that there is vast amount of information there and people in organizations who serve needs such as our Story County needs.
So what are our findings? As a result of the study, we have identified a number of issues. One is that there's insufficient funding for expansion and innovation in transportation. There's an acute driver shortage, and this we heard over and over again. Some agencies rely exclusively on volunteers, but for paid positions, the salaries are low, the jobs are part-time, and they don't include benefits. So it's difficult to get drivers. There is an inability to take advantage of the college university student pool. We feel that there are a number of young people with driver's license that could be somehow employed, yet very, very few are employed in this sector. Rising gas prices have restricted the use of family vehicles. Coupled with inflation and the rising of all costs, drivers may not be able to afford vehicle repairs and maintenance, making transportation an even greater problem as we go into the future. According to HRDA and RSVP, there's a problem with aging vehicles and a lack of revenue stream for regular update of those vehicles. Vehicles are very expensive and many of them need to be wheelchair accessible. That adds additional costs. The older vehicles all use fossil fuels. There's a lack of public awareness of the array of services available. As Chris and I went through our work, we identified a whole number of opportunities, most of which are only in Ames, however. But yet a lot of the folks that we spoke with were really not even aware of the array. And of course, that brings the other problem up. If they were, could HRDA and RSVP and others really satisfy that demand? There is incomplete information about the actual needs of small towns and rural areas of Story County. When we spoke with town clerks, they often would give us the response that transportation is not a real big issue here because folks take care of each other. They go to their families, they go to their neighbors, they go to their church members and others. So it's not really a problem. But when we dug deeper, we found that that could be a problem. We identify a need for visionary, integrated, immediate, and long-term plans at the county level, and a need for out-of-the-box thinking and solutions.
So bottom line, we found that serving transportation needs in our county, in any county, is very complex. If you look at it, and if you like to look at things in threes, there's the group of essential needs, the social service needs. There are the needs that are more related to economic development and the workforce. We're working on that. Related to that are the educational institutions wanting to make sure their students get to their places. And the third more emerging need is concern about environmental quality and how transportation impacts. It's very, very complex. We know that there are key resource people in our county. They are very interested in this topic. They're very willing to talk about these things and bring solutions forward. But very humbly, we can say as a committee, we really have the authority or the power to really bring people together in a problem-solving sort of way. That needs leadership beyond us. Annika Mondell at the United Way Transportation Collaboration says so well. She said, we know what the problems are, but we don't have the bandwidth to establish the solutions. It needs leadership at a high level. So our proposal is that our leaders, our county supervisors, can establish a transportation action group, task force, whatever you want to call it, bring together the citizens and these agencies, the players who are already involved in this, to try to coalesce and coordinate the efforts so things can move towards a clear sense of what are our problems. And as you explore best practices that are out there, what would be some good solutions to put into place for Story County? So that is our proposal. Thank you for listening.
Brooke here.
Question, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
One question I had, so when I read through the report, it talked about obviously the need for, or looking at the need for transportation throughout the county. What I didn't see was more of a definition as to what, did you guys look at defining what type of transportation? You know, is it just for basic needs to make sure people get to food and medical appointments, or was it broader for, you know, gosh, I live in Maxwell, but I just want to go to a movie in Ames, or I want to, that I wasn't as clear in the report provided, or were you leaving that as part of your recommendation for this transportation action group or whatever to further define?
Lisa, I would say in the informal fact finding with our local people, all of those things that you mentioned, the types of transportation came up. So depending what a person's perspective or organization's perspective, it could be high on the social end. Talking to people just in the town, they're aware of so-and-so needs to get to the doctor, so-and-so has trouble getting groceries, so-and-so is still working, but they have older parents that need to get to the doctor and they have needs for transportation.
I want to answer that with the hierarchical of needs. I mean, we did look at things like getting to the airport, getting to Des Moines, getting to Ankeny for often medical or other issues. But often the conversation kind of fell down to people needing really basic transportation, and that of getting to basic medical care and those types of endeavors. So I think we want to look at the whole aspect of transportation and acknowledging that living in Story County, the need to get to the airport or even get to major metropolitan areas like Chicago or Minneapolis is not easy. And I think those should also be included. But like I said, it's a kind of hierarchy of needs, and it kind of often fell to groceries and medical and hospital.
I'll throw in one more need here that would burble up in these conversations. Simply the statement of, if you don't have reliable transportation in your town, you're not going to be able to get to work. So
Yes.
that the economic workforce are kids trying to get out of town to maybe attend a social or sporting event in Ames, sometimes this would come up. So it's the whole spectrum.
We spoke with the vice president of Burke Industries in the county, and he talked about the difficulty of getting employees because of transportation to where he is located. And he has found that he gets more employees from Marshalltown because somehow there are additional ways to get and people that have created networks to get to his organization from Marshalltown, and he's not employing as many people from Story County. And he cited transportation as a big issue.
Questions? Are you done?
Yeah.
And I looked through your memo and I'm partway through your report, and I'm sure I didn't get all the way through it. I hoped to, but some things came up this morning, so somehow that happens. I think our challenge in this is kind of an obvious one, but the challenge in rural area and smaller communities is doing it in a cost-effective way.
Mm-hmm.
And to my mind, I'm really looking for a problem statement that helps us hone in on numbers. And got some good information in Appendix C from the clerks. It's a lot anecdotal. Did you talk to them about how we could survey a community to get really, knowing that needs can change because they're smaller communities, but how we might be able to survey a community to get some more numerical data about needs?
Linda, you're right. We didn't do a full-blown survey for time and resources.
Sure.
Is there a need for that? Probably, but this is another reason we're wanting to send it on to
Countywide group.
a countywide group that is resourced and can give it the full attention it needs and have it be a real solid research study. Our methodology really was involved informal contacts, more or less testing the waters, kind of identifying where further questioning should be directed.
And I think anecdotal information can be good, but I think the best thing is to combining anecdotal information with, some hard data, particularly when you're trying to say, how are we going to make this work efficiently? Did you by any chance talk to any mayors?
Yes,
What did you hear from them?
it was mixed. Some would say, well, we take care of our own. We don't know of any transportation services. HERDA, what's HERDA? We never see HERDA. The mayor's views were a little, quite different from the city clerks. The city clerks were more willing and more likely to say, yes, we have needs and know specific groups and types of needs that are in town. So both those people.
That's what enforcement survey data might help.
Yes.
People may think things are okay until they see that, here's things we do. And it also does, like say, hone in on, we don't want to put a lot of time and energy towards a solution that we find out, we didn't have a good enough problem statement before we started putting together our solution, and we may have wasted time, resources, money, whatever.
Linda, we tossed around the need, should we do a survey and recognize the importance of research? And I'm sitting next to an experienced researcher right here. But one of the fallbacks of if we as a little committee, volunteer committee, would put together a survey, doing a survey automatically sets up expectations. Do we have any power to act on it or implement it? No. So the survey should really come from a higher level beyond our volunteer committee.
And I could see some very low cost ways of getting that done, in particular if we went to cities and distribution and collecting. I don't know for sure. I'm just kind of talking right now, but it would be nice to have some expertise to help develop the survey.
Yes, I would like to be involved and do have expertise in survey design and taught it at the graduate level at Iowa State University.
Yeah, and if that's the direction we decide to go, I mean, I'm going to struggle right now. What's the first step?
So if I could interrupt for just a second, and first, thank you, because I know you guys have been working on this for more than a year, actually, and I know that, Chris, you and I had many conversations a long time ago about some of these things, so thank you for all the energy and work that you've put in. I think, and one of the conversations that you had with, I'm not sure which group, a survey, you raised the issue of maybe a survey, and I believe the response was, well, we've done surveys. We have a survey that's a few years old. So I think, I know that conversation has happened. I know there's some information and some data that's been gathered, but I think you make a really valid point. If you were to put a survey together, even if it was an excellent, tight survey, everything was there that needed to be there, without having the weight of a formal task force or organization behind it, the response you get will be haphazard. I think it's something that we need buy-in from all of our community leadership, everybody at the table, our transportation organization, HERDA, which is fantastic. They cover a huge area. They've got great data and valuable perspective. I would say that our starting point would be a conversation with all of the players.
Exactly.
And saying, here's, we all talk about transportation all the time. So it's not new, but it's newly assembled. And so it's a nice kind of bringing us together point for everyone to start the conversation again together.
Right.
And I think your point about having out of the box conversations, creating a space where people can just share those ideas. Maybe they work, maybe they don't work, you know, maybe it's ridiculous, but maybe there's a piece of that someone else says, yeah, that's crazy, but how about we do it like this? I think that's what I think I'm hearing from you is.
We were impressed with the willingness, people willing to dig in on this topic and their positive attitude towards it. If you will, this is sort of teed up for the next step for people to come together. And as you're considering a formal survey, likely those players and citizens could have some input of what should we really be surveying about, and let them have some buy-in in what questions are asked, because they'll bring some ideas.
I think another thing to look at is we had heard a call that came in and presented to us about their It's For Us pilot program. They're one of, I think, 2 locations nationally doing a pilot. They're actually doing a pilot down in Dallas County, and it's more that on-demand continuum of services, no matter on your income or disability. But I think they said that they want to have it implemented throughout our region, but for here, they're just starting phase 2. They were awarded phase 1, and then they were awarded funds for phase 2. And since they were awarded for phase 2, they automatically got phase 3 as well. But that wouldn't be something that would be going in Story County for probably another 3 to 4 years if they're going through this. I think if we're looking at this, we need to pull that in to understand where that in the process. And because I know that whole goal is to do more outreach and more access throughout the entire county. So there may be something that's already kind of started, not that we can't look at more information, definitely, but there may be that model that will be easy to kind of step in once they've completed their pilot.
And that was, remind me, that was primarily for people with disabilities?
Yeah, but this was broadening it out, and I actually pulled it up. Their scope is for seamless travel for all users across all modes, regardless of location, income, or disability. So
That's good, that's probably.
yeah, it was broader.
Yeah.
So certainly we'll see what their phase 2 and phase 3, you know, if there's any changes to that. Anytime you're doing anything, you might find that the scope that you're looking at may have to get narrower, maybe get broader, but that's just something to keep on our radar, right, as well.
Which would be another reason why it would be important to have them involved in any conversation that we're having.
Right.
And particularly in putting together a survey.
Right.
I think, because they.
And that may be something that they did in Dallas County too, that you can look at. Piggybacking on.
In a conversation with her fairly recently, they would wholeheartedly, they are asking for a survey. Because that will help them too. If they have solid information, that will help them know how to run their agency.
I looked at the table of the trips unable to accommodate. And saw there were only 7 in Story County outside of Ames. What does that mean? Does that mean people don't know to ask for the services? Yeah, exactly. That's what I assumed it was, that people just weren't aware that there were services they could be accessing.
Right. Yeah, I think there are probably a lot more people who are working full-time who need to help their parents get to the doctor or friends, or I think there are a lot of those great things that are happening in our communities, but I think there's a lot more we could be doing. And it's hard to know what those things are until we start having those conversations and start looking for that information. Yeah. Yeah.
I thank you for all the work that you've done. Really provided us some good information.
Thank you for getting us off in the direction of who we should talk to, because I had to start somewhere.
We will keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to consideration of minutes from 7/26/22.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Merkin.
Aye.
Hens, aye. Basil, aye. Consideration of claims from 8/24.
I move approval of claims as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Hens, aye. Merkin.
Aye.
Basil, aye. Consent agenda.
Approval of consent agenda.
Second. Moved and seconded, Merkin.
Aye.
Hens, aye. Basil, aye. We have no public hearing items. Moving on to additional items. Discussion and consideration of administrative costs associated with YSS ARPA contract.
Morning. Sure. My name is Toby O'Berry, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Transition Age Youth Services at YSS.
Hope Matheny, Transitional Housing Program Director with YSS. Thank you.
Yes. And we want to start off with just saying thank you for including us in the round of support for programs for ARPA funding. We're very appreciative of that. Being part of the solution, we have a high demand for transition age and homeless youth that need services in Story County. I think some of the confusion maybe on our end was when we did the application, we said it was an existing program. And part of that had to do with, we had COVID dollars for 3 rapid rehousing units at the time that we did our application, and that has ended. And then we also have 6 rapid rehousing units that are only for youth that are victims of human trafficking. So part of our application was saying that we are doing human trafficking, we are doing rapid rehousing in our community, but this specific request isn't an expansion of other rapid rehousing programs that we're already providing in the community. It's more that we have the knowledge to provide this support. And in our application, we had requested, it was 1.3, I think was the request, and 1.1 was awarded. And our admin is roughly 15%. And our admin costs cover additional facility expenses, office space, utilities, additional HR time. You have finance time for billing and processing grant components. So there's just a significant layer of admin expense that we need to operate, which is kind of a new program here in Story County. But we have rapid experience, but this would be one that would be specific for all homeless youth in Story County over that 5-year time period. So if you look at the 1.1 that was awarded, it's roughly $220,000 a year for 5 years. The admin piece is $30,000 to $33,000 of that piece. And if you look at it per individual served, it's roughly $27,500 is the cost for services. About $10,000 per youth is for rental assistance. At $10,000 is roughly that salary, and then the additional $7,500 is all the other expenses, which would include administrative costs. So we're very appreciative to receive funds, and we just want to see if there's a way for us to receive that 1.1 with our budget, including administrative expenses.
Are you saying you're actually hiring additional administrative staff just for this program?
There'll be additional hours of our HR staff. So some of them are part-time, same as our finance staff. So they'll be working additional hours.
So it's not just spreading your administrative costs across one more cost, current administrative costs across one more cost center.
No, it's specific
I
to,
guess I didn't understand that the memo we've got in front of us, the administrative costs weren't itemized, it just still is administrative costs.
you mean in the application?
In what we've got on our agenda today.
Yep.
It's not, and this is.
It has the line item probably for
It
administrative
has
costs.
a line item for administration, but it's not itemized.
Mhm.
Can you itemize that?
Yes.
Do you know about roughly what it is?
We would have to go through and figure out the hours and the time for each of those components. All of our grants where we operate rapid rehousing, for example, has a line item for administrative expenses. It's a very normal thing to have administrative expenses to run a program.
How did you come up with the 33,000?
That's 15%.
That's 15%.
That's roughly what our
Line
agency admin expense is, which we put in our application, 15%. Like we stated what it was in the application. And then when the award was provided, that was just removed without us knowing, and we were supposed to provide the services just without administrative costs. And we're coming here today to request that those administrative costs are included back in as per our original application.
So you were saying before your rapid rehousing that you offered before were just for human trafficking or just COVID related?
In Story County.
In Story
Mhm.
County, yes.
So we have 50 units in Polk County that we operate with is 6 to 7 different rapid rehousing grants, one in Mason City and some in Marshalltown. But in Story, it was just those units.
We have applied for additional funding as well through a variety of sources. So it is something that we really do value in our community, and we are looking to help as many homeless youth as possible.
So the 33,559, that is what the cost was to run the COVID.
So each grant is different and allows different administrative expenses. Usually HUD type grants will allow up to 10 or 15% administrative. So that's where we took the basis off of the 15%, I believe.
That's also the dollar amount where we didn't have to hire any additional staff. And so it was keeping one staff that was doing another job and then having them continue those 3 apartments that they would do the case management. But when you scale up and have an additional 8 to 10 units, you need additional staff, which then costs even more administrative expense to do that.
So you mentioned that some of your staff are part-time, I believe.
Mhm.
So you would be adding more hours. They would potentially be 3/4 time because of the new program and the additional service provided.
Some of it depends. Like, for example, we have an HR person that is part-time, that maybe it's an additional 6 hours a week that they would need to work. But it really is basing it based on what that need is for the additional staff.
Sure.
And we do have one rapid rehousing program that is coming to an end. And so that funding will be ending. And so we already have a staff who's fiscally trained, who will be having less responsibilities in that, but then could add here. So we already have it kind of ramped up. We've already created our program manual. We have it posted to hire staff now on our website. We are really excited to get moving along and start spending some of these dollars.
So I guess what I'm confused about is on the revised budget, it has one full-time advocate. 100% of that person's time would be for rapid rehousing.
Mhm.
And then the program manager, 15% of that time would be for this program. And then the transitional housing program director and ADP transitional services are each existing full-time positions, right?
Mhm.
And 10% of their time is going to go to this. And these are the people who are going to be
Running the
running
program.
the program.
Yep.
So these are existing people,
Other than the full-time one that we will hire.
right?
Mhm.
So your HR is already working with, like your HR is already there for these people
Mhm.
and the work that they're doing. I think that's kind of where we were when we were talking about cutting the admin, it appears you already have the admin in place. Am I wrong?
Part of it is when you add more staff, then those programs cover whatever administrative expenses are in place or the support system that is there. So for example, we have an office space that's empty that our agency is just covering those expenses. But when our staff use that office, then that cost for that facility would go to that program and to support that. Same as a portion of the common area maintenance and the utilities, the maintenance staff, some of those components is what your administrative cost is, that it's tied towards a % of your overall programmatic expenses, knowing that you have to be those funds to cover each of those components to operate your program.
We have to understand that when you take on a new program or new people, there are other costs associated that impact. Having worked in the nonprofit world, certainly understand that impact. And it impacts government too. If you're hire new people, it just adds more HR, your payroll, or other things. I think our thought was we want to make sure we're providing as much as we can to the kids. That's really where we're coming at.
When we looked at your application, and read these decisions, what stood out was not finding it now. There was already rapid rehousing going on at a program in Story County. It seemed to me, from looking at it, that this was an add-on to something you were already doing, and I assumed that because of that, there would not be large administrative costs. And I agree with you, we've got a couple staff members already in there that aren't administrative costs. So I guess just putting in 15% as opposed to saying these are the actual costs is kind of hard for me to. We're already operating a rapid housing program in Story County, so we have existing landlord partnerships to quickly house youth in apartments. Once in it, we will provide wraparound and supportive services. So it just looked to me like it was not an addition that was going to require significant admin costs. And I always feel better with the admin costs if they are itemized. It's easier to look here rather than we just do a standard 15%.
If the application had asked for the itemized admin, we would have been happy to provide that.
We didn't anticipate that we were going to get it in costs, I don't think.
Even though it was a line item in the application that said, how much is your admin? And you put 15%, which makes you believe that 15%, like that's something that's considered.
Project budget.
I think we're all kind of learning a little bit as we go. I think the thing that stood out, if I'm remembering correctly, was that it appeared to be an already existing program.
I think some of that is the 3 COVID units that we were operating that ended last December.
Yeah.
But
So
we're underway when we submitted the application. So we were providing rapid in the community. We aren't anymore specific other than the supportive ones for human trafficking.
So you're
victims.
looking at moving some resources that, staff resources from that program over to this program. You no longer have money to support them.
No, though we aren't providing that case management or support to those 3 youth. So they transitioned out of it and we had to shut that program down. So we're not providing those 3 anymore.
but with some of that in there that we have done rapid rehousing. I was the coordinator, manager for transitional housing for over 10 years and we've been running the whole time. So we do have landlord relationships
Mhm.
and stuff like that already built up, and we can start implementing everything rather quickly.
I think that was more of our gist of explaining that we had the foundation to be able to do it quickly and the knowledge with the landlords, because really that's the critical piece. If you don't have a connection with landlords or those partnerships, it's very difficult for a landlord to agree to house a homeless individual in a lease in their name. And so a lot of it is that partnerships that is critical to be successful.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think we read it, or at least I read it. as
I could have
you get
written it
your
wrong.
Your existing program, you're expanding out, not realizing that your one program had ended. Stuff, and that the other one was specific to a particular population, and that funding only goes toward that.
Mhm.
I think our other concern was it was a big number.
Mhm.
It seemed like a very large number for admin costs. And I don't remember which one of you just said it, but we want to make sure those funds are going to serve as many
Mhm.
youth as possible. And it just seemed like a very high number.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, we always work to bring that down as much as we can and agree. And every year the leadership looks at how can we either supplement that expense with other funding sources or donations or anything else. And so we always are mindful of keeping that admin as low as possible.
So you are able to itemize it?
It will take a little while to come up with what each of those all are, but I can try to do that for you.
I think that would be important to us
Okay.
making any different decision if that is the direction we end up going.
I will get that.
And when you're itemizing that, I hear what you're saying about if you have office space that isn't being used,
Mhm.
your agency's somehow taking care of that. If it's going to be used for a program, you charge that back to the program. I understand that. I hadn't thought about that. But the other thing would be then, I assume the itemization is going to be, we currently have somebody who's doing some payroll, the example, but he's working 20 hours a week. That's going to be an additional 5 hours a week because of the additional employees.
Right.
Or whatever it is, that you'll show why it's an actual increase in your expenses.
Yep.
Is that
It'll just take me a little time I don't have access to the salaries of all of our employees, so I will have to work with HR to get the hourly rate for 10 people to figure out the out and then put that together so you can see the breakdown. But I will do that.
That'd be great.
Mhm.
That'd be great.
Perfect.
Do you have any other follow-up steps for us?
I think that's the main thing, at least for me. right
Okay.
now.
Okay, and once we submit that, then would you like us to come back and present, or can that just be turned in to Leanne?
I would say send it to Leanne
Okay,
and
back to let you know?
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
that work.
Yes.
Yeah, are we talking about 40 or 50?
It would be 40.
It would be 40.
50 was if we had gotten the 1.3. And so getting the reduction, you just look at it strictly divided per number of youth. And so it would be 8 youth for 5 years versus 10 youth
Both ways.
for 5 years.
You could itemize it both ways. For the 50, is that what you're asking, man?
Do you want me to itemize the 1.3, which is an award that wasn't given to us?
No.
We're trying to itemize the 1.1,
Right.
Just the one.
which was
Right.
lower.
Yeah.
And when we said in our application we'd serve 50, it was at the 1.3. And so when you get the 1.1, it's just math of how many youth can we serve at 1.1 with our existing costs, which is 80, which is 40.
And we had also estimated at 10 per year. And so now we put that in back in December. And so now it's already August. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And so if we don't lower our number of clients, we're going to be upping the caseload. And as we know, up caseloads can provide stress and burnout and everything that we talk about every time in our discussions.
Anything else? We'll get that for you.
That'd be great.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Yeah.
much for your time this morning.
That was discussion and consideration, so we need,
I guess I can make a motion that YSS provide information to Leanne regarding the itemized admin costs. That's then be relayed to supervisors for consideration at a later date. Aye.
Merkin.
Aye.
Basil, aye. Thank you. Next, we have discussion and consideration of asset funder priorities. Morning, Sandra.
So the information before you is a request for approval for the asset funded priorities that will be used in January for the FY24 budget allocations. I provided a memo that sort of outlines what's needed. I'd like for you to take a look at the list of priorities to see if it's in the rank order that you would prefer. And if it contains everything that you want. Is there something you want to add or remove, modify language, et cetera, and then approve the priorities with changes.
What were the yellow highlights?
The yellow highlights, some of that information has been added. The yellow highlight at the top for senior services is because Supervisor Heddens had a question about senior services, whether or not you want to expand resources there. So I just highlighted it so that I would remember to prompt you to say if you want to change. And then the other ones are new.
Suicide prevention.
The green for suicide prevention, it has caused some confusion. It's a very gray area in terms of funding. There was a request from YSS and seeing it on our list of priorities. They requested some carryover funds in order to provide that service. And at that time, I recommended that they meet with CICS and see if that would be something that they could fund. They did have that meeting and they've asked, CICS has requested a proposal from YSS and has asked them to also consider providing suicide prevention training for the region. So they're still in discussions about that, but it sounds like it's more in their area than something that the county really could.
So that's, so you're looking at deleting suicide prevention from this list.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, and that's,
Thank you.
that's what we talked about, the confusion with the
Yeah.
state taking over mental health and
No,
disability service system, what the county is allowed to fund, or if it has to go through the region.
Yeah, I didn't realize the green meant deletion, and I was kind of confused that it was there after the discussions we had.
It was really just a different color highlight so that we could have that discussion, but my recommendation would be to delete it because it causes some confusion. It's gray. And so each time something comes up in that area, we'd have to talk about it and see, how far into the mental health area does it go.
Right. Are we allowed to?
Like the two bullets that you put, eliminating barriers and providing quality services to first time population. Those will be, that's going to be very helpful.
Yeah, and I just asked on the senior services to just highlight that a little bit more. we talk about housing or some other things, we tend to think of younger folks and seniors also who need help with housing or food insecurity. And so just wanted that highlighted just to kind of keep that out there as well.
And then you and I talked about requesting that providers inform us of how they are ensuring that their services are being provided equitably and that people are qualifying for those services and how they're determining and ensuring equity in their assignment of services.
So the draft sentence that I added for under the notes, for number 3, is looking at adding the Board of Supervisors is interested in knowing how agencies are embedding equity into programs. And that would just go before the sentence, annual reports should include implementation, data collection methods, et cetera.
I like that addition a lot. Thank you. I need to right order this as far as I am concerned. Any other questions or concerns?
Now, motion, discussion, consideration, approval of the funded priorities cover letter and the funded priorities is submitted.
With that addition to note number 3 and the removal of.
No, I just want to be clear on the changes that I need to make.
So removal of suicide prevention.
Yes. And addition of all the other ones. I'm not seeing them in this room.
The notes for agencies and volunteers at the bottom.
Not on the cover, but.
Yeah, it's on the
It's on
priorities.
the priorities. So at the very bottom, notes. There were two attachments.
There's 2 attachments.
Yeah. Yep. So it's the second.
And is there additional language you want added for senior services? Do you want that, how do you want that expanded, or do you want it expanded?
I think it's fine. I think that it's kind of referenced as kind of not that kind of us forgetting that population.
I made a motion. I think we're continuing discussion.
Yeah.
Why don't I withdraw my motion? It's not seconded anyway. Unless we decide what we're up to.
I think we got caught into discussion with Sandra asked for clarification. Making a
Yeah,
motion.
so let's just,
I think I'm clear on it now, unless there's something else.
Okay. So you'd like to make another motion?
Hold on.
I would move that we approve the cover letter as submitted. And we approve the funded priorities list with the additions of the items in the yellow highlighting and the deletion of the one in the green highlighting as shown on the agenda. And
The additional sentence to note.
the additional sentence on the notes on that same document.
I'll second it.
Any other?
I'm sorry, I do have another question. When Linda said approve the cover letter, that reminded me that rent is in the cover letter. Your approval of the cover letter, was that saying that you want to add rent to the list of priorities, Linda?
The way I read the cover letter was to ensure the county's policy of not providing financial assistance for rent is the board's preferred position.
Do you want to add it or don't want to add it?
I don't want to add where, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm confused. So I think you were saying, I want to make sure that the the supervisors do not want the rent covering your asset because we're doing it through another means.
So I wanted you to discuss it, I guess, to see if you wanted to add it with this additional information that's provided here. I want you to discuss whether or not you want to add rent to the list of priorities.
I think we had a lot of conversations about rent over the past year and a half. And I think it was talked about a number of times that we don't do that, but we don't fund that through asset because we have this other. And I think she's just ensuring that's still what we want to do.
And that was in saying approving this, that was what I was saying. Ensuring that that's what we still want to do is because of the consent. But if anybody else wants to suggest we do it differently, we can use my motion. How much of the other funders, providing on rent?
At least the city and United Way. I'm not sure about ISU. But I know
But you don't know what amounts. I mean, we've not been doing it through asset because we do it through general assistance. And we use, and as you said, it's about 60,000 here through that. I'm just wondering if that's similar to what the other partners are doing through asset.
that I would have to calculate in order to determine that.
So I guess my clarifying question is, the city and United Way are putting money towards rent.
Rental assistance.
Okay, so that's just my one question there. And we know there is a need for rental assistance. We've seen that with the economy as it is, and just the numbers that have been provided. So I think that's the question is, do we want to go beyond just our community services and one of our priority areas is rental assistance, right? Rental assistance as well through asset. So we're not correct.
So are the other funders providing rental assistance outside of asset?
Outside of asset.
Because we're providing it outside of asset.
Yeah, I get what your question.
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay.
We have to have this done.
That I don't know.
Today.
Yeah, I would say.
Right.
So I would
So,
say I don't have enough information to make a difference.
yeah, right. I just understood your comment of outside of assets, and I was looking at, gosh, we don't do it within assets.
No, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
We do it with outside of asset, which is why we don't provide the money through asset. Just wanting to make sure that we were, and if the others are not providing outside asset and they're doing it through asset and it's comparable amounts, I just think maybe we can look at it a little more ahead of time next year and see if, but if we're needing to do it now, I don't have enough information to make a different recommendation.
So, yeah. The funding that we provide through general assistance.
Those are our budgeting time.
Right, and centralized intake, well, we have,
And that's something that can be discussed during our budgeting. Time.
Can I ask Aaron a question?
yeah.
I knew that was
please.
coming. Go ahead.
Would you?
Do you want me to?
Yeah. First, we have a requirement to provide general assistance to the code fund.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
So that's why
Through
we're
code.
doing it that way.
Yep.
Secondly, do you know if either of the other asset funders have such requirements? City of Ames or Iowa State?
Oh, boy.
Not that you know of, or
No, I don't know that.
And you don't know of any city money that's provided for financial assistance for rent other than through asset?
So I don't think so, because back in the day, they used to provide some rent assistance above what was, HUD or, that kind of thing. And so I'm not certain, that was a couple years ago,
Okay.
and they haven't done that for a couple of years. So
I think my question would be, as opposed to what are they funding outside of the asset process? My question would be, is what we're doing through general assistance and centralized intake, is that meeting the need? Or do you see that we need to be doing more than that? Like, in the work that you're doing, are you seeing,
I
feel
think,
like the county is doing what we need to do?
I feel like we're doing what we can do just based off of what we're bound by the code for our definitions for poor and needy and things like that. And so if you look at putting, because I mean, if you can see from my numbers year to date, we had 54 out of the whole year, 54 people that could have been eligible for our funds and were eligible, but didn't return their paperwork in order to get the funds. So you've got other people we could have helped, but they didn't, come through with what they needed to. So could we have expended more money? Obviously, yeah, for 54 more families or
But the reason they
households.
didn't get help was not because there wasn't enough money available, it was because they didn't follow through in the process.
Correct.
Maybe something changed for them, whatever.
Hard telling. Yeah.
That's helpful to me, Erin. Thank you.
Sure.
I don't think that represents the total picture. The information that I provided in the memo was based on the information that I did get from Aaron and shared with the board prior to the meeting. And here it was just to show you that the board's percentage of that $293,760 that the centralized intake partners put toward rent, board's share of that they have paid so far was less, or the county's portion that they have paid so far was less than 30% of those three players.
But that's not through asset, that's through,
No, it isn't.
okay. That's why I was confused. And I guess it seems to me that if we have a requirement to provide general assistance, I think maybe we should look at that second part of what you got in number 2 here during our budget process, as opposed to having some of our rent assistance going through general assistance and some of it going through asset. It seems like it makes more sense to keep it in one place. And if we should be doing more, then we're talking about our county budget process, not our asset process.
That's what I was trying to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yep.
So, yeah, we can look at this during our budget process and say, do we want to put more in the rent through to the general assistance program?
And is that the need, as Aaron just said, there are 54 people.
Yeah.
We could have helped, but
We
didn't, but not because we didn't have the funds to provide that, is the documentation wasn't submitted to be able to follow through with funding their need.
But were those people going to other resources like Good Neighbor or Salvation Army?
I don't know, but I'm assuming they would have had to fill out some documentation there too. They just didn't fill out the documentation through journals.
This was through the centralized intake partners anyway, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, those 54 people that we're talking about so we've had this discussion before about rent in Ames in the surrounding area. It's always too much. So like even if we can fund 500, they're generally going to another entity to get the rest of it. So even if we were going to be able to help them with the 500, they would have probably had to go somewhere else to help with another 500 or 400 or whatever it might be.
Costs in general.
Yes. Yep. So to say
generally, I don't know what happens to a lot of those folks that don't return their paperwork,
Right.
because they wouldn't be getting the full amount from those other entities anyway. Because those, I mean, Good Neighbor, gives a family 300 or something now. So, I mean, so we don't know what happens. That sometimes they come back the next month, and then we still have all of it. But
I'm good where we are now. I'm not considering making that. Any revision to my motion.
All right, so we have a motion. And the second. Okay. Pitts, aye. Diesel, aye. Thank you. Thank you.
can I
Oh,
just
you can
stay?
Stay right where you are, my dear. So, GA quarterly report.
Yep, I feel like I've been in front of you guys a lot, so there really wasn't a whole lot to tell you, I don't think, in this report that you didn't already know, but numbers wise and stuff, I think for me, the most astonishing part was to look at this whole thing and after a year's worth of data of doing that centralized intake. So I'm gonna kind of just shoot right through probably to the at the bottom of this first page, though, the SSI interim reimbursement, we did we're in the process of serving our second, so it laps over to this year, but we did get reimbursement for the one that we helped in this last fiscal year. So that was good. All went well. And then we have one that's in process right now. Service coordination. So we get into centralized intake. So July is an interesting month around. I mean, it is really, 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 really busy. It doesn't help that people have vacations and, things like that. And so you don't always have all your staff around, but it is with the movement in Ames with all the apartments and everything. So a lot of deposits, a lot of first month's rent, a lot, that kind of thing. So really increased our activity. So as far as our Wendy and Jen being able to spend, bring on new people for service coordination, that hasn't really happened throughout July and maybe half of June. So we're looking to up those a little bit. Those would be the people that we follow along, for the more 90 days worth of service coordination or whatever. But and so then this next one is the collaborations that we put into CSN. And just kind of shows you what our totals are for our asks of those other entities as far as how many of those we put in. But year-to-date totals, so in the assistance requested and the amount funded, those numbers to me are just ginormous. So you've got your request year-to-date totals. So part of this would have still been when the Bridge Home was, with us for a few months too. So there were 3 entities for, part of it. But, over $1 million in requests for utilities and rent.
Yeah.
Is
Significant.
I had no idea. I mean, this is stuff we've never kept track of before, nor had the ability to. So that, in your previous discussion, we will just have more of this going forward so that we can maybe talk about stuff, the next year or whatever more. But yeah. And then we spent a lot of time this last quarter, obviously bringing, doing the ordinance and the manual and all that kind of stuff to get ready for our split from the mental health piece. And then I still met with veterans over the quarter, about 65 of those. And Brett and I do an electronic newsletter now. So through Constant Contact, we've done 2. And so we're working on our 3rd right now, but I helped him with that. So yeah. Any questions?
appreciate that we're able to kind of get better tracking of the finances. See where we're at, will really help with identifying, you know, kind of moving forward. What else do you need for the number of folks that you're serving?
So I think looking forward to budget decisions, or budget discussions, that might be interesting to say of the, you know, the reasons that people were not approved.
I have all that stuff. You mean like the reason they were
Yeah,
denied or
right,
anything
right,
like
yeah.
that?
So is it because
Yep.
there was no money, or is it because they didn't follow through, or was it because their income was
Mhm,
too high, you know, whatever they are?
mhm.
Because that'll help us determine if we, you know, if we're adequately funded.
Right,
All right.
there's additional, there are additional things that we could and should be doing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you've done and
Sure.
Stepping in.
changes in the last,
Yes, no problem.
all came at once, didn't it?
It sure did.
All right, we have no other reports, any upcoming agenda items?
I think I do.
No, okay. All right. That brings us to public comment number 2, comments from the public on items not on this agenda. The board may not take any action on the comments due to the requirements of open meetings law, but may do so in the future. Anyone who would like to make public comment, please step forward to the table or raise your hand on Zoom. And have you filled out a slip yet? If you could grab one of those two for the clerk, that would be great.
And then the afternoon.
Either way is fine, yeah. Go ahead and have a seat. And just if you could state your name for the record, please.
Okay.
I'm Liesl Danielson. I've met all of you before. Liesl Danielson. Do you need me to spell it or no? Perfect. Yep. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the Ames Urban Fringe Plan. So I've recently heard it said how necessary the fringe plan is and what could happen if there isn't one with Ames. So I decided to do some research. There are not very many fringe plans in Iowa, but I did find some in Johnson County. So interestingly, Coralville in Johnson County did have a fringe plan, but it expired April 8th, 2019. According to the Johnson County website, the extraterritorial review of subdivisions within 2 miles of the city's boundaries default to the provisions of Iowa Code Chapter 354. Without an adopted 28E fringe area agreement, the city's review is limited to subdivisions per Iowa Code and conditional use permits per the Johnson County Unified Development Ordinance. So that's all it said. Well, obviously the conditional use permits perked my attention because what does that mean? Since we're dealing with that here. I researched farther and I called Johnson County Planning Department and I was told that the city can comment on conditional use permit applications. So I said, you can still apply for them. Yes. Okay. So sure enough, when I went to the application itself, at the bottom, it says, and this is for all areas, all cities in Johnson County, for applicants within 2 miles of any city, the applicant must obtain official comment or waiver from the city before Johnson County Board of Adjustment will hear the request. That's reasonable. And that, like I said, that's true of every city in the county of Johnson County. So in the fringe plan between Iowa City and Johnson County, outside of the city's growth area, which would be outside of the urban growth area in this proposed plan, subdivisions and divisions of land into fewer than 3 lots shall solely be reviewed and approved or denied by the county. Okay, more than 3 shall conform to the city's rural design standards. So city staff will review and forward those comments and recommendations to the county for consideration. Basically, outside of their urban growth area, the county is really in control. And divisions are allowed, and if they're bigger than splitting at once, then the city can weigh in, but the county ultimately has control. So there's absolutely nothing about automatically eliminating conditional uses anywhere in any county that I've found where the county says, okay, you're within 2 miles of a city, we're not gonna allow people to apply for permits anymore. That I found. I didn't find anything like that. So then I called Polk County Planning because I know they don't have any French plans. And I asked how it worked if someone within 2 miles of a city wanted to divide their land. The man I spoke with at the planning department said that the city would review the subdivision, but he hadn't really heard of anyone saying no. And that surprised me. Sure enough, when I looked further at Ankeny Planning and Zoning and City Council, they do review it. And every single subdivision I saw, it said, quote, approval subject to applicable Polk County subdivision requirements in lieu of the City of Ankeny subdivision regulations. They handed it back to the county. This is Ankeny, the biggest growing city in Iowa. And so there was one as recently as last month. There were several I found this year. And I just happened upon a report from 2018 showing approval of at least 14 different rural plats within the 2 miles of Ankeny. So my research has only opened my eyes further in how Ames absolutely uses tyrannical rule over its 2 mile subdivision review. In a July 20th, 2021 workshop, Tim Garten, an Ames City Council member, said, quote, I'm not willing to give up land to the county. Okay. Ames is asking you to change county zoning for them. They want to hold the land in the 2 mile friend hostage. In this plan, there would be 0 new buildable lots allowed, which is exactly the way Ames wants it, and that's how they already are operating. The restrictions they are asking for will drive businesses out of Story County. So businesses like Raspberry Hill and many others are assets to Ames and Story County. I have so much more to add, but it's being presented that if you don't give conditional uses, we might not be able to get a couple of non-annexable areas like to negotiate with Ames. The 2 things on the table are Iowa State. Well, we'll make Iowa State non-annexable. Well, nobody controls Iowa State. Iowa State gets to do whatever they want. So that's not a bartering chip that we even have. And number 2 was the land to the west of the railroad, north of 190th, south of 180th. The city says they can't even service the area with sewer. So they only give up what doesn't mean anything to them, which has no value. Iowa State doesn't have value because they can't control Iowa State. They can't service to the west of the railroad. So, okay. In every single circumstance that I know of, Ames has either said no or they've asked for something from a private landowner, like a covenant that they have to agree to come in to the city voluntarily. They never just let anybody have ownership of their own land and make decisions on their own land. So they really take away rights. So please stand up for rural Story County landowners and businesses. French plans are voluntary. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a few things to say. Christine Hausner, HAU SNER. Good morning, ladies. Sorry we're late. We were stuck by a train, which is probably still sitting. I didn't really plan a whole lot to say, but I've talked with all of you extensively. I guess I was really distressed by some of the things that Amelia presented at the last planning and zoning. And I didn't have an opportunity to say anything to rebut them because I am a single mom and I had to leave to go get my kid. But I will be making a formal letter with specific examples of issues. And I know that you have said that you have to rely on your staff because you have a very large job and you guys have so much to do that you have to rely on your staff to give you the correct information. But when you're getting half-truths, you're not getting the entire picture. So that's part of what I'm going to be sending everybody. I am really bothered by the fact that the environment keeps getting downplayed. That's very distressing to me. And the environmental impact, which I don't believe anyone else in the county has an environmental impact study like that. It's just like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter because the environment only matters when it serves
someone's purpose. So when a developer comes in, it doesn't matter. And that kind of attitude is why this planet is in the position it's in right now. So there are many things that I was very upset with that I will be addressing, but I would just like to, I do not feel that the Story County Planner cares at all about any of us in the county, at all. Because if this person did, we would be getting a call saying, come into my office and talk to me about what you want, what you need, what is it that you guys can live with? And that has not happened with the city council. That is not happening now. And I've already told you guys the absolute despicableness of what I've had to deal with the city. And I've told all three of you that my animosity does not lie with you. My animosity, my anger, my frustration is with the city manager, city planner, city council, but I'm sorry to say it is now filtering into the Story County Planning and Zoning. Things are not changing. And you have to start asking yourself why. Why is there such a huge push for something that doesn't make sense? And I am at my breaking point with dealing with this. And I've already talked to the Office of the Ombudsman. I talked to them for over half an hour. I am prepared to make a formal complaint against the city manager, the city planner, city council members, and the Story County Planner if something does not change. I do not want to do that. I know me, my family, and I think I can speak for others. If we have to start with legal action, we're gonna. People should not have to fight this hard for their own property. It's not yours. It's not Kelly Diekman's and Amelie Schoenemann's. It's not the city council's. It's not Steve Shanker's. It's mine. My property has been in my family for 70 years. I should not have to fight this hard for it. This is the definition of oppression. It's unjust treatment by a government to force people to change. And something needs to change. So please, if you think that the Story County Planner cares and she wants to represent us and she wants to make sure that we're taken care of, why would she send a memorandum about a month ago that says, you don't need to wait, go ahead and vote on it. I don't see any reason for delay without addressing any of our concerns at all. Those are the actions of someone who is supporting the city of Ames, not the county. Thank you, ladies.
Do you mind putting out a card before you?
Yeah.
Before you come back? Thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make public comment or anyone else in the room that would like to make public comment? Seeing no one, will close public comment number 2. Liaison assignments, committee meeting updates and announcements from the supervisors.
Sure. Today, this afternoon, I have I try to do the community of excellence steering group that I'm on. We're having a discussion on mental health this week. But I also have the Board of Health meeting this afternoon. There is National Night Out that's going on tonight. Hoping if people go out tonight that they dress coolly and stay hydrated. I'm not sure what all the activities will be, but it's certainly going to be a one tonight. Tomorrow I'm in the office. I'm planning to attend the planning and zoning meeting tomorrow. Thursday I have a few meetings. I have a aging Zoom meeting, a couple meetings out of the office on Thursday. Friday I'll be in the office. And Monday, I'll be in the Monday as well. Nothing yet on the agenda, but it's only Tuesday. I'm sure that could change.
This afternoon, I have a strategic planning session at Conservation Board. I'll be out tomorrow morning, be in the afternoon, attend Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Have some personal business Thursday, Friday, I'll probably be in the office as I will on Monday, or next Monday, we have Conservation Board meeting. And I'm sure some other things are going to come up.
Yeah, this afternoon I have a meeting with the city of Nevada. Water, or sewer line plans, how that's going. Tomorrow I have a meeting to talk about next year's rec ride. And then tomorrow afternoon, a meeting with the Octagon. And I'll be at the planning and zoning commission meeting. I also have a County Leadership Institute meeting kind of overlapping tomorrow night. Thursday morning, I am participating in the City of Nevada's walkability tour, where they're just going to be kind of taking stock of walking paths and gathering some information there. I have an arrest diversion team meeting Thursday afternoon. On my calendar, there's a Farm Hero meeting Thursday evening that
Is their annual meeting?
Oh, yeah, I actually said initially I couldn't go, but I'm gonna be able to go to that, so thanks for that reminder.
Friday, I have a meeting with Teresa. Nothing else on Friday yet. Monday, I've got opioid task force and SIRHA RFP meeting and DCAT right after that. That's it so far.
What time is the Hero? Is that at 6?
5:30 is what I've got.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
The adjourn. Sorry.
Moved and seconded. Evans.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
Basil, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.